This is Ellis Burks with A Truth Project. This is the second episode. And what we want to deal with right now is slavery. I really felt the need to dig a little bit deeper into slavery. One of the reasons that I felt like I wanted to deal with slavery is because I talked to some friends of mine. I asked them, why do they think that we as a people seem to have this hatred for one another, this jealousy for one another. And I'm just going to really get to some real bottom line stuff. I do believe that right here in America we have a tendency to, at least black people we would like to blame others for our situation. What I tried to do was dig a little bit deeper back into slavery, and I really come to find out that there's a real fundamental difference between what we were doing as Africans and what others has done throughout the world. And what we were doing, we were capturing slaves, black people, our own people, and we began to sell them as an export to Europe and to white America. And I think that in itself demonstrates a problem that we have as a people that goes way beyond American slavery and even beyond European slavery, and that is that we seem to have no problem at all selling black people. I had to really go again back to the Bible to really find out what kind of spirit is that. In the Bible, when it deals with Joseph being sold by slavery, being sold by his brothers into slavery, the way God deals with that is he calls it, he says that they did that because of envy, because of jealousy. And I'm just here to say today that if we sold black people way back then because of jealousy, because of envy, then we can't really stop and say that jealousy and envy is something that is a result of us being here in America. We can't say that jealousy and envy is something that's in black people as a result of us being in Europe. We have to accept the fact that jealousy and envy is something that is a result, something that was in us from way back in Africa. From that perspective, I do want to say that it's important for us as a people to really look at it from that perspective, really deal with it from that perspective, and believe God to shine enough light on it that we can be delivered from it from that perspective. A lot of the things that we suffer from as a result of being here in America is the fact that we don't really like one another. You know what I mean? It's hard to ask a people, another race of people, to really like you more than you like yourself. It's almost an impossibility. If I don't care anything about myself, I do realize that there are going to be some people that really care because that might be their thing in life, to really help people who have that kind of struggle. But if I don't really like myself, I just can't see myself going around here, and I got all these people who really like me, and I have a problem with myself, with my own features, with my own heritage, with my own history. And I think we as a people need to really dig down and embrace a lot of stuff about our past. And this is a tough state. Instead of blaming other people, instead of blaming white people for our position, our condition, instead of blaming Europe, for our position and condition, really go back and realize that we are truly responsible for our position and our condition when you look back into history and recognize that we had a problem with one another in Africa. And I just wanted to really touch on that. I think that's an important thing for us to grasp. One of the things I was talking to people about was, it's almost like, white people have to have a problem with the way that they treated black people when it came to slavery. I do understand. I don't think they should be excused from it. But I do think that, it's a problem when you just continue year after year, generation after generation, to continue to blame whites. White people made some they made some mistakes. There's no doubt about that. They made some mistakes in how they dealt with slaves and, the cruelty and the abuse of slavery. Yeah, they have a problem with that. It's almost like an adult who abused a child. And, later on in life, when that child is probably 20 years old, now you come face to face with that child. That's a tough situation for both people. And I'm sure that the adult now feels bad for what they did in the past. And I'm sure that the youngster is feeling bad what was done to them in the past. But at some point, both people have to be able to move forward. I know it's not a lot written about this, but you can take my word for it, and you can dig into history yourself and find out. But there was also a lot of white people that was encouraging us to hang in there, that was feeding us, food when they probably weren't supposed to. So let's also recognize that if we don't begin to dig into history ourselves, and find out what really happened, which is what this project is about. A truth project is about digging into history and finding certain places of truth and presenting that to you. And here's the real truth that I want to leave you with, and that is that black people sold black people into slavery. Don't be so mad at white people because they bought them, because I really believe that if white people were selling white people into slavery, there's a real strong possibility that black people would have bought them. So we don't want to get caught into the people who bought the slaves. We want to make sure that we recognize that there were some people who sold slaves. I do also want to get next week, dig into the history. I also realized a lot of people went over there. They also began to take slaves, and we'll deal with some of those issues as well. But right now we want to just, this week, leave you with that. This is a tough saying. It's tough for me to even bring this to you. I do want you to understand our objective is to get a people to a point that they're willing to dig in and find out history for themselves, not continue to let America, the media, define certain things for you. This stuff is in history. We have access to the internet. A lot of this stuff you can find out for yourself and no longer hold people, under something that you haven't really, figured out or really studied for yourself. I do want to say that. I don't want us to hate Africa. I really love Africa. I'm getting to a point just from doing this project and doing studies myself that I really appreciate, white people. I can look at them differently now, and I can look at myself differently. And so I think even right now I'm presenting a whole different product when it comes to me, Ellis Burks, because I no longer look at whites as though they're the reason for my demise. The reason for our demise is ourselves. But we do rest the blame of slavery right where it belongs, and that's right at the foot of the enemy. The devil would love to have us to be a people that they're so busy looking at other races of people because of slavery, and looking at the white people blaming them, looking at other people blaming them for slavery, and not blaming him. The true problem when it comes to slavery really has to do with the devil. I think you see it when you look at Joseph. I think you see that, and I think you look at it when you look at our lives. And no longer do we need to blame others for slavery. We need to really absolutely blame the devil and allow ourselves to be free from the bondage of jealousy, from the bondage of envy. And I think the way to do that, again, is to allow the light, the truth, which is the light of God, to shine on that question, why black people seem to have this great problem with other black people. Is because of envy and strife. It's because of the spirit of that. That is not a spirit from the Lord. That is a spirit from the devil. And I think what we need to do is denounce it and ask God to help us to be a people that's able to embrace, first of all, our own people. You see, it starts at home, to embrace our own people, and then from there, embrace other people who have stood on the side of the Lord, who have stood on the side of God and fought for righteousness and against slavery. That's what I wanted to say for this week. I look forward to hearing from everybody on Twitter and regarding this issue. And I do also look forward to us, and also from Ustream, I also want us to be a people who's willing to even challenge one another to look within ourselves for the reason why we ended up enslaved, and look to the Lord for the reason why we are free people right now. I also want to say before I go, I'm taking a lot of my time, I want to say this whole thing about the Truth Project is hopefully an inspiration to get people to first begin to read, find out the history for yourself. Also to really look at our kids. Our kids are starting to believe something that's just not true. It's not true that dark is better than light. It's not true at all. The truth is, we want our kids to be able to judge people by the content of their heart, to judge people by their family tree, by how their family interact that way, and not necessarily by the ways we have sort of defined people to this day. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I want everybody to remember that this is a truth project. Peace.